Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Mid Morning on WCVI. The California wildfires have been dominating the news lately, and while we do not see wildfires that often in Mississippi and Alabama, and usually not that severe, we do have our share of disasters. Joining me now at the table is Columbus Fire Chief Dwayne Hughes. Thanks so much for joining us, Chief, and we're talking about disasters. And off camera right before we were talking about a couple of different things. And this is probably, as a firefighter, I'm guessing, a little tough to watch all of these fires and just thinking about how quickly it's escalated out there.
Very much so, as we were saying before we came on air. Very difficult to watch, looking at the destruction, the number of people affected, and having the compassion of a firefighter, a public servant wanting to help, and sort of knowing the mindset of those men and women that are out there dealing with those situations is very tough to watch.
For sure. And now we have wildfires here. I'm not saying we don't, just maybe not to that severity, but we also have our share of disasters. I've covered tornadoes, floods, hurricanes that have come through here with high winds. So I've covered a variety of disasters in Lowndes County before. What's maybe the toughest disaster to prepare for as someone in your position, as a firefighter, as a first responder?
Definitely as a first responder, one of the toughest emergencies that we deal with or disasters in the area would be the severe weather. When we have tornadoes here, although we don't have them at the frequency that they have in the Midwest, the intensity of the tornadoes and severe weather activity that we have here far exceeds it. You have an area of contained destruction. You have anything from fires, which of course everyone knows we respond to. You can have entrapment. You can have hazardous materials incidents. If you have motor carriers on the highway spilling different things. So it runs a wide range, and because of that variety, it's hard to prepare for.
That makes sense, yeah, because I know one of the main concerns after a tornado hits, such as 2019, tornado tore through Northside, was gas leaks.
Yes.
That's another one, that just, it really concerns you. So when we talk about disasters, there's always training, there's plans, there's preparation. But I mean, once that tornado touches down, sometimes you wonder, is the training really still there with you, Because we go through exercises here where we do a little bit of, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to respond to severe weather plans. So how is that training and preparing for those disasters?
Yes. Well, I can say that here in Lowndes County, we are very blessed to have what we call the Local Emergency Planning Committee. And what it is an organization that's comprised of all of the emergency responding agencies, local businesses, and other stakeholders. We get together and we actually plan for these events. And as you just stated, we have large-scale exercises where we enact those plans. But those plans are probably only good for about the first 10, 15 minutes of that emergency. And then you fall back on the training. You fall back on what we're blessed to have an abundance of here in Lowndes County is interagency or interlocal agreements, mutual aid agreements. And during all this training, we form relationships. We know those individuals' cell phone numbers. We know the capabilities of these agencies, the equipment that they have. And we can pretty much forecast that here in Lowndes County for about the first 72 hours, we'll be pretty self-sufficient, irregardless of what that disaster is.
Also, we talked earlier, and I was asking you what you would rather go to and deal with. Would it be a tornado or a snowstorm? And he said tornado.
Yes, I would much rather deal with a tornado. Tornadoes have that definite cycle of a beginning, an affected area, and then an end. When it comes to these snowstorms and snow events, It's everywhere, it's all the time, it's everyone involved, so it stretches you thin.
It doesn't let up.
It does
All right.
not.
One thing when I called to ask you to come and do this interview that really surprised me and something I hadn't thought about is the woodland firefighters that are out in California fighting these fires that the state of Mississippi has as well are different than the firefighters you might find at your firehouse just down the street. Kind of explain that and why that is.
Okay. Well, wildland firefighting in the United States actually originated in California. And it it separated itself from traditional structural firefighting. When you think about it, it's sort of self-explanatory. The firefighting that occurs in the wildlands are outside, whereas with the structure fires, those firefighters is contained. So there's different tools that are used. There are different tactics employed. When it comes to structural firefighters or your local firefighters, you have an intense minute, 2 minutes where you're fighting the fire, and then you have other firefighters that come in. When it comes to wildland firefighting, they've got overland hikes of miles, 15 to 20 miles. They operate in 10 to 15 person teams. They're working at like 8 to 10 hour operational periods where they're using axes and shovels to clear fire breaks. They're doing other things that cut off the fire as it extends. And then there's also, when the conditions that they have in California, they're fighting the elements.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this. They have helicopters and planes that are dropping water and fire retardant on the fires. I would hate to be underneath that. I mean, there has to be a lot of thought process and skill planning that goes into just doing that, putting water on the fire.
Yes, it's very dangerous. Those aircraft that are employed that have to use a lot of math calculations when they're taking on the weight of the different water, the fire retardants. Those retardants are actually mostly like ammonium phosphate, and they are dangerous. So they have to be skilled. And once they release it from the aircraft, they can't really tell if they're going to be on target or not.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, Chief. Well, thanks so much for coming on and talking to us about this and giving us a little insight, a firefighter insight.
I certainly appreciate the invitation, and thank you.
Absolutely. All right, we'll be back with Ashley right after this. Welcome back, everybody. Weather is playing an important role in what happens with those California wildfires. The skills meteorologists have being put to the test. Joining me now is our own meteorologist, Ashley Bryant. And
hey.
Hi, welcome to Mid Morning.
Thanks.
You're not usually on the shift this time of day.
No, I'm not.
All right, Ashley, so help us understand a little bit about why these wildfires can spread so quickly. And I think a lot of it, and I'm no meteorologist, but a lot of it
basically is.
I'm a weather nerd, I will say that. Enthusiast.
There we go, that's a good word.
These winds are just howling. I mean, it's hurricane force winds up there.
Yeah, so Bryce, our newest sports director, he has family out there. He's from LA. Told me a few days ago that sustained winds were anywhere from 50 to 60 miles per hour.
Wow.
The gusts were reaching 100 to minimum 80 miles per hour. So yeah, hurricane force winds involved with spreading these fires, but you also have the insanely dry conditions. They have not had barely any rain in a year, it seems. So it's been a long time since that area has seen a substantial amount of rain. And we even know here with the drought that we get over the summer, it takes time to build into such a drought that causes issues. And they have seen that substantial amount of time now. So you get the super dryness with the crazy fast winds that can cause friction, and then that friction can start fires. You can also have people tossing a cigarette butt out the window, not fully realizing like, yeah, it may be dying off, but you still have that little bit of spark within. You mix those conditions together and you have now a flame, which those winds carry along.
Yeah, and Chief Hughes was just talking about how, there may be a fire set in one part of town, but the embers they pick up, they carry off away,
Yeah.
and then it sparks a fire in a whole another part of town.
Yeah, a lot of these videos, they were talking about how crazy it was to see the fire jumping creeks, jumping streets, but if you really think about it, it's not entirely crazy because you have these fires that are going so far up in the air that wind picks up those embers, like you mentioned, and basically tosses it across the street. So then it restarts in a new spot.
And this area is famous for these high winds, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially with the mountains and valleys that they have, it just kind of goes up and down like a roller coaster, just carrying everything.
All right, thanks so much, Ashley, for helping us understand why weather playing such a crucial role. We'll be right back, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. You may have noticed empty shelves or fewer choices of eggs at the grocery store and most likely the prices. That's because the United States is experiencing an egg shortage due to avian flu, and the situation may not improve anytime soon. The USDA says in November and December alone, more than 17 million egg-laying hens died as a result of the virus. It will take months to replace those flocks. Fewer egg-laying hens means fewer eggs and higher prices. The average price for a dozen eggs of any kind at the end of December was $4.33, up nearly 25% from the beginning of November. While the bird flu has captured the headlines, health officials are warning you should be more concerned about the seasonal flu. The new CDC data shows flu activity in the U.S. is high and is expected to stay that way for several weeks. The highest flu activity, in the Southeast, Midwest, and West. Hospitalizations and deaths increased in the week ending January 4th. So far this season, the CDC says more than 9 million people have caught the flu. There have been at least 4,700 deaths. The agency says everyone ages 6 months and older should get a flu shot. Industry groups are suing to block the Biden administration from banning medical debt from appearing on credit reports. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau finalized the rule last week, which also prevents lenders from using certain medical information in loan decisions. It could remove roughly $49 billion in medical bills from the credit reports of about 15 million Americans. Industry groups representing the credit bureaus and debt collectors argue the rule violates the Fair Credit Reporting Act and that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau lacks the authority to issue such a ban. If you want to enjoy the health benefits of coffee, look at the clock the next time you reach for a cup. A new study suggesting what time you grab a cup of Joe determines if you reap its benefits. Those include lower risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, and premature death. The problem is variables like genetics and adding sweeteners to coffee produced inconclusive results. Researchers determined people who drink coffee between 4 a.m. and noon enjoy its health benefits, but those who did so during other parts of the day, well, they didn't see any change from people who don't drink it at all. The largest bank in America, J.P. Morgan Chase, shut down comments on an internal website post announcing its new return to office policy. That's according to the Wall Street Journal and Barron's. The company reportedly received dozens of angry comments from employees about the change. The bank is requiring all employees to work in the office full-time beginning in March with limited exceptions. The change mostly impacts back office workers who had not been allowed to work remotely twice a week, where they had been allowed to work remotely twice a week. About 60% of the company's workforce was already required to be in the office 5 days a week. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau accusing Capital One of freezing the interest rates of its flagship high interest rate savings account at low levels despite rates rising nationwide. In a lawsuit, it says the bank launched a new account that offered better interest rates without telling customers with the other type of savings account. It claims consumers lost more than $2 billion in interest payments. Capital One strongly disagreeing, saying the new account was marketed widely, including on national TV, with the simplest and most transparent terms in the industry. Well, some of the fastest growing jobs in 2025 revolve around two letters, AI. LinkedIn looked at millions of jobs based on user information from 2022 to 24. The top two jobs were artificial intelligence engineer and artificial intelligence consultant. Following that, physical therapist, workforce development manager, and travel advisor. One of President Biden's last official acts will put new restrictions on the export of U.S.-developed computer chips that power AI systems. The Global Export Framework announced yesterday it is designed to keep the advanced technology out of the hands of our adversaries. It creates 3 tiers for exports of advanced AI chips and technology. There are no new restrictions for partner countries and allies like Australia, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan. Countries including China and Russia will be subject to new restrictions on the sale of the most powerful closed AI models. The third and largest group will soon have the new caps on the amount of computing power that can be bought. Analysts have said this change is intended to prevent China from getting AI chips through third countries, particularly in the Middle East. All right, up next, the next generation lunar lander is preparing for takeoff. We take a look when we come back. Welcome back, everyone. The moon may soon get some new visitors. Just after midnight tonight, a SpaceX rocket is due to liftoff, carrying 2 commercial landers that will try to touch down in the coming months. One of those was built by a company in Texas. Mark Strassman got to see the U.S. lander up close before it was shipped off for launch.
All right, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, inside what's called the clean room, Ray Allensworth showed us this lunar lander. Her team has spent the last 3 years designing and building it. 6 feet tall, 11 feet wide, with 4 landing legs, hoping to touch lunar dust.
This is what's going to the moon.
Allensworth is the spacecraft program director at Firefly Aerospace.
Good to send. Sending command.
Firefly, based outside Austin, is a small space company with a big space dream.
It's been basically the only thing we think about morning, noon, night.
This really is a building largely of something.
Yeah.
Creating the next generation of space.
I think that's one thing that makes us really different is they've been told no so many times in their career, so they don't know what can't be done.
The Blue Ghost lander was named after a species of firefly. It will embark on a 45-day journey to the moon. Its mission? Carefully lower to the lunar surface and deliver 10 payloads for NASA.
So if we kind of look down, you see over there, you see that spout kind of coming down.
I do.
So that's the drill, and it will deploy down and go into the lunar surface.
This drill will try to penetrate 9 feet below the surface to measure temperature. Another experiment will vacuum up loose lunar rock and dust.
Our payloads are collecting data so we can figure out what does it feel like to be on the lunar surface, to operate on the lunar surface. So all that data will inform when we actually return humans to the moon.
NASA's paying Firefly about $100 million for the mission, part of a new government effort to hire companies to fly experiments to the moon.
Commercial tech is advancing at a very rapid pace.
Jason Kim is Firefly's CEO.
And it's really bringing down the cost and affordability of systems that once took billions of dollars and countries behind it to land on the moon.
But Firefly must prove it can get there at a fraction of the cost.
And liftoff.
2 of Firefly's rivals flew into trouble on their first flights last year. One company, Astrobotic, suffered a mission-ending failure of its propulsion system. The other, Intuitive Machines, touched down but tipped over on the lunar surface.
It's extremely difficult to land on the moon. It's extremely difficult to get something in orbit, let alone landing on the moon. And so I think it's extremely humbling, but we really believe that this is going to be a success, and we're doing everything we can to make it happen.
10 miles to go.
No American-made spacecraft has landed intact and upright on the moon since Apollo 17 in 1972.
What would a successful moon landing mean to Firefly as a company?
I get a little emotional about this. Sorry. I think it's going to mean a lot to our people.
Because they've worked so hard.
Yeah.
And to you, what will it mean?
Well, to me, imagine this country hasn't been to the moon and successfully landing in 52 plus years, and then all of a sudden Firefly lands on the moon for the nation. That's a big deal.
Also a big deal for this little can-do space company. I'm Mark Strassman in Cedar Park, Texas.
Well, this story is a little more down to earth, but it may have you wanting to take off into space. Scientists in Australia have discovered a larger and more venomous species of the world's deadliest spiders. Nicknamed Big Boy, the supersized version of the Sydney funnel web spider can grow up to 3.5 inches. That's 1.5 inches longer than the more common species. These spiders are known for their fast-acting and highly toxic venom, but researchers say the anti-venom used on the current species will work on the big boys too. The nocturnal arachnids are most active between November and April. That's a little scary, isn't it? All right, we'll be back to wrap things up. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great day.